So today I took the bus to the airport for a job interview, which means going from my house a mile to the bus stop, then going from the bus stop to downtown on my first bus, then going from downtown to the airport on the next bus, and then doing the whole thing in reverse once the interview's over, which it went pretty well, so wish me luck. I should be hearing back in a couple days. But the bus fare is $1.70, or $2.25 if it's an express bus, which I think all four buses today that I took were express buses. So that's a decent amount of money, especially for somebody who does not currently have a job. So there's this thing called the youth fare, which is for people who are 19 or under, and it's $1. Now, I'm 21. I'm going to be 22 on Monday, actually. But they don't really check. They don't ID or anything for the youth fare, because if they ID'd everybody who said that they were 19 or under and paid the youth fare, it would take like a million years, and the other passengers would get really upset because it would take too long. So they just kind of eyeball it. I mean, I guess if you looked way over 19 and paid the youth fare, they would say something. It says on the thing, like, be prepared to show proof of age. But mostly they just eyeball it. And since I look like I'm 19 or under, I got to pay $1 on all four buses that I rode today instead of $2.25. So I paid less than half what I would have been paying if I had not looked like I was 19 or under. So, you know, if I were cis, maybe I would still look young, but there's no way to know. But it's undeniable that the fact that I'm trans contributes to my looking young. And so that's my first positive of being trans. Today alone, it has saved me about $4 for $5.25, I think. Yeah, math. I don't know. But still, that's a lot of money. And I'm pretty sure it's because I was trans. There's also the fact that just a couple more looks-based things. The whole Twink aesthetic, it's not necessarily something that I'm really into or really like trying to achieve, but it's definitely something that people like and that I can appreciate. And it's a lot easier for me to achieve it because I can't really grow much facial hair. I have a little bit here and here and here and some sideburns and stuff, but not much. And I have cis gay friends who actually, some of them are getting laser on their facial hair because they just absolutely don't want it, and it's a pain, and, they have to, in order to achieve the look that they're trying to achieve, they have to do a lot of work, and I don't. So, there's that. That's good. Another superficial thing is that my binder makes me look skinnier. I have a little bit of a belly, and my binder squishes that in, and so most people don't ever see me without my binder, and so most people think that I am skinnier than I am. And that's not something that means a whole lot to me, but, it's nice. My boyfriend says my binder also makes it look like I have pecs. And that's also not really something that, like, I'm really trying to make people think. But it's good. I mean, it's not bad. So there's that. On to some more, like, a little bit deeper stuff. There's my identity as a queer man. I don't know if I'd been born cis if I would identify as queer, or if I might just identify as gay or bisexual. I feel like realizing that I'm queer has sort of been the product of a lot of experiences in my life, and if I hadn't had the same experiences, I don't know if I would have came to the same conclusion. So if I had been born cis, I might just consider myself, a gay guy. And I love being queer, and I love having a word to describe my identity that feels so right to me. And I don't know if I would have that if I identified as gay. Another identity thing, the fact that I'm a feminist. If I had been born a cis guy, I don't know if I would be a feminist. And I absolutely love all of my feminist friends and my feminist boyfriend, and you know, it's such an important part of my identity. And you know, I've got a lot of problems with like misogynistic gay dudes. And if I hadn't been born trans, for all I know, I would be one of those misogynistic gay dudes. So I think, you know, I really like my identity, and it seems like those aspects of my identity are potentially tied to my trans experience. And so if I didn't have that, then I wouldn't have those. And that would suck. So there's also just being able to appreciate little things that I think cis people don't ever really think about. Just gender-related stuff. Like, you know, before I started T, I still had like a decent amount of leg hair, and I had like a happy trail and stuff. And I loved it so much. And I would just be sitting around, and I would just look down at my leg, and I would be like, oh, leg hair, you're awesome. I don't think any cis guy in the history of the world has ever said that. I don't know, maybe they have, but it's far less likely. So just being able to appreciate little things like that, and the fact that, you know, I've really thought about my gender a lot, and really, you know, I know myself very well. And I think a lot of people don't ever think about themselves and their identities to that level. And so I'm really grateful that I have done that. And if I were cis, if it was just, okay, here's the parts I have, and here's what people tell me I am because of that, and yeah, that sounds right. If, you know, my inquiry into myself never went past that, you know, that would kind of suck. I don't like that idea. So there's also the fact that I may have gotten a fellowship partially because of my trans identity. I'm not sure, but it was with this progressive organization. They specifically say on like all their employment stuff, people of color and LGBT folks encouraged to apply. So I outed myself in the application. I have no way of knowing if that helped me, but if there's any chance that it did, then that's awesome. I know in most jobs and internships and things like that, outing yourself is either going to hurt or not really do anything. But in some cases, it is positive. And so, you know, that fellowship was an amazing experience for me. So if being trans helped me get it in any way, then that's definitely a positive. So, you know, there are definitely a lot of negative things about being trans. Even when I was trying to think of positive things, negative stuff just kept sort of popping into my head. I would be thinking on the topic of binders. I would be like, oh, is there anything else about binders that's positive? And it would just pop into my head like, oh, it really sucks exercising in a binder. And I would be like, no, it's not the negative list, it's the positive list. So there are a lot of negatives, and I definitely understand, you know, that some people aren't necessarily in a mental space where they're ready to talk about the positives. And, you know, there's no reason to try and push anybody to look at the bright side or look at the silver lining or anything when they're not ready for that. And some people aren't. Like, it does suck, and it's okay to acknowledge that and to feel like there's not anything positive about it. But it is good to eventually be able to get to that place where you can think about the positives. And I think, luckily, I am at that place. So, you know, those are some positives. I'm sure there are others. And, yeah, that was a really interesting topic to think about. I've kind of thought about it a little before. My boyfriend's joked about, like, oh, you should make a video about how, you know, your binder makes you skinnier and isn't it great to be trans? And I've kind of laughed about it, but, you know, there are definitely positives. And so I think that's a good thing to talk about sometimes. And I will see you guys next week.